On the off chance that you haven't noticed, Arcane Season 2 has been receiving a ton of flack lately, and for good reason, don't worry. But I don't see a ton of praise for this season on YouTube, so I wanted to offset that. Here's a breakdown of the things I loved about Arcane Season 2, and then if you want to hear my take on why Season 2 didn't stick the landing, subscribe and be on the lookout for my next video. Yes, this is a two-parter. Okay, I promise I try to make my intros as short as possible, but there are a couple things you might want to know, especially if you're new here. So, for one thing, I am uber cautious about not invoking the wrath of copyright, so what you see is what you get, and what you get is mostly still images. As for the audio, if you hear a bit of sibilance, I apologize in advance, but I have tried like a million different setups, and it's still doing sibilance, because that's just the way my voice sounds, unfortunately. And you are not allowed to complain about it because I'm the idiot that has to edit these stupid things for hours on end. So if you hate it, sorry, can't do anything about it. I'll get a better microphone this time if you guys blow up this video. Alright, enough tangents from me. This video will be divided into 4 categories: music, character design, animation, and then a secret 4th category, which you will find out about eventually. Okay, onto the music. Just like the animation, the sound team was on their A-game, especially all the musicians involved. Mako and Woodkid have a few videos about the process they took to make the soundtrack, and I have watched every one I can get my hands on. Seriously, go watch them after this. It's so cool. There's so many little details that they put a ton of thought into, and if I talked about them all, I'd just quote the videos entirely. And this video is going to be long enough, trust me. Let's start with the bridge leitmotif. Arcane has several leitmotifs, which are musical phrases that are tied to a specific character or idea. Most of them are pretty straightforward in their meaning, like the Sisters leitmotif that plays anytime Jinx and Vi's relationship is explored. But there's one that's not so obvious. I'm talking about the bridge motif. In this season, I only heard the bridge leitmotif like 4 times, but I feel like it was kind of the star of the show in this season's OST. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm referring to the little tune Baby Powder sings in the very first scene of the show. The lyrics of the song, shown on screen, references the relationship between Zaun and Piltover. Number 1, when the freed Zaunites touch Jinx's shoulder. Number 2, when Vander recognizes Powder in the jail. Number 3, when AU Powder sees our Echo in the anomaly. And finally, Vi hums the motif at the very end, most likely thinking about Jinx. She mentions to Caitlyn that it's just a tune my mother used to hum, and then the instrumentals pick up the tune and carry it out into the wind. Now, I'm not the leitmotif guy on YouTube, that's Sideways' job, so I don't have a ton of solid answers on what the bridge leitmotif means. In Season 1, it was always tied directly to, well, the bridge between Piltover and Zaun. It also happened to always reference Jinx in some way. And then the second season does something else. This season typically references some kind of gap that's being closed. Echo goes from one universe back to his own. Jinx gives the Zaunite prisoners a path back to Zaun. Vander has found his way back to Powder, that kind of thing. Although Season 2 did some new things with the motif, what stayed the same is that it's still always tied to Powder/Jinx in some way, and then it also usually highlights the relationship between Piltover and Zaun. I find it kind of interesting that Jinx specifically is tied so closely to Piltover and Zaun's struggles. I mean, it does make sense at least. Jinx has always felt like the secret main character of the show, and League of Legends in general, I guess, and she drives a lot of the big changes in the story. So maybe what I'm trying to say is the real Jinx was the bridges we made along the way. You didn't come here for good jokes, you came here for dad jokes. I think this connection implies that Jinx is the bridge between Piltover and Zaun. In other words, if you want Piltover and Zaun to be united, you gotta go through Jinx first. If you want to learn more about the leitmotifs in Arcane, a big help for me was this Reddit post, which is currently being shown on screen. Black Cat of Zaun seems to be a total rock star when it comes to leitmotif hunting, so shout out to them. Okay, Appointment of a General is an instantly iconic song, and it's one of my favorite songs from the instrumental OST, other than The Brambleback Has Left the Jungle. Appointment of a General is the part where Caitlyn gets chosen as the head of martial law. When Caitlyn first walks out, she walks to her own tempo. Then by the time she takes Ambessa's hand, she's walking in step with the music. And then, Caitlyn's tempo is off again as she climbs the stairs. Her relationship with the music here is honestly kind of a mini arc on its own. Honestly, the OST in general is really good. Here are some of my favorites. Now you might notice a bit of a pattern here. A lot of my favorite instrumentals just so happen to line up with my favorite moments in the show. The animation was obviously stellar, but the music takes it and elevates it. Episode 7's background music deserves special mention. It is incredibly engaging and memorable, and is a shining star in an already competent OST. I can tell the composers had a special passion for Episode 7, and so do I. Does anyone not like that episode? I mean, goodness. I also can't talk about the music without also mentioning the soundtrack. Here's my favorites, at least these are the ones that I put into my playlists. As you can see, I love most of the songs in the soundtrack this season. There was only a couple I didn't like. Once again, if you want more cool stuff about the soundtrack, check out Mako's videos. In the TV version of Paint the Town Blue, Ash Nico, I'm assuming I'm pronouncing her name right, does some alternate lyrics that I really like. Her voice here is more gritty and raw sounding. It's got a more unpolished and punk sound to it than the studio version. Not that any of them are bad, obviously, I just like them both for different reasons. Spin the wheel! When I first watched this scene, I was like, that kind of sounds like Heimerdinger, and it turns out, it is! It is! Which, I gotta talk about this. Heimerdinger's voice actor can sing? In character? Do you have any idea how hard that is to do? I gained so much more respect for McWinger after seeing that. Honestly, all of the voice actors are amazing, but I really like Heimerdinger's voice actor. He's so adorable. There's this electric cello type riff in the back half of Remember Me intro that I think is really cool. I was looking all over to see if it secretly included any leitmotifs from the OST. As far as I know, it doesn't, but the reason I'm highlighting it is because of how well this song integrates itself into the greater vibe of Arcane's music. I don't know how to describe it in a way that doesn't feel obvious or nonsensical, but its musical signature, the chords they use, it feels like it could be in the instrumental OST, or maybe even a League of Legends champion song in general, and it would still fit. Playground by B. Miller does this too, in terms of the types of chords they use. Or maybe they just use a bunch of minor chords for League of Legends songs, and that's why they all sound the same. Again, I have no idea if I'm explaining this right or if I sound stupid, but I just wanted to talk about it. If you want more hidden gems, I also recommend these two songs in the OST, Open Your Eyes and Turn Your Back and I'll Disappear. They're these wonderful, ambient, contemplative, shoegazy type songs that play in episode 7. I believe the first one plays in the workshop before the echoes switch out, and the other one happens when Echo's going on a walk and thinking. I'm not sure why they were put in the OST instead of the soundtrack given that they have lyrics. Maybe it's because those two songs don't follow the traditional song format. Regardless of where they put them, I actually really like these songs. Especially Turn Your Back and I'll Disappear. Its lyrics really got to me, for a reason I can't yet describe. Everyone's dancing alone. Let me down. I'm not left in the dark of your memory. And it starts to fade. You'll be right here. Turn your back and I'll disappear. I guess the puzzle that you solved wasn't real. I find it interesting that these lines could be Powder singing to Echo or Echo singing to Powder. After doing some more thinking, I think I figured out why the lyrics made me emotional. Or maybe I was just on something that day, who knows. What I'm about to talk about isn't necessarily the true meaning of the lyrics itself, it's just more about what I got from it. But here goes. My self-worth has gone up a lot since I was a teen, but sometimes I still wonder if I'm just some translucent ghost in people's minds, only existing as I float around in some abandoned corner of the hippocampus. But that's exactly why Echo and Jinx's story means so much to me. Jinx has been a living nightmare for Echo for a decade. She killed his friends, corrupted his home, tainted the memory of the girl he loves. He thinks he's given up on Powder, that the changes she made to survive made her unlovable. But then episode 7 comes along, and that narrative he spun for himself gets challenged. The puzzle he thought he solved wasn't real. Jinx is not just a monster. He admires her intelligence and knows that when she uses it, she changes the world. Whether she's calling herself Powder, Jinx, or something else, he loves her. All of her. That little torch he still holds for her will never sputter out. And though he'll miss it, he leaves his happy ending to save the one he loves. When hope starts to fade, he'll be right there. I would by no means consider myself a bad person, but if Jinx can change so much from who she was before and still be a part of Echo's world, then maybe that kind of love is still possible for me. Turn your back, but I won't disappear. I'm not a ghost. Ma meilleure ennemie is a song about opposites and contradictions. Stromae's parts represent Echo, and Pomme represents Jinx. With Fortiche being a French company, I'm sure they loved getting to animate to a French song. I think it's just another way the creative team showed their passion for episode 7. Fortiche in French means clever or excellent, and Fortiche as an animation company certainly lives up to its name. I swear my French accent is usually better than this, but sometimes the anxiety kicks in, and then, I start talking stupid, so yeah, you're not allowed to make fun of my accent, I'm sorry. Okay, last one. When Ambessa climbs the stairs on her way to execute Caitlyn, a choir can be heard. It's not exactly the same, but it sounds similar to the backing choir in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. That's the music video for Ambassa, if you didn't know. It's like a step down in pitch, but it has a very similar chord progression and intervals to that song. Obviously, I'm not a music major, so I could just be connecting dots that are miles apart, but I still thought it was cool. Okay, update. At this point in writing the script, I just listened to the spot in the OST where this happens. Wanna know what the title for this song is? Raised by Wolves. It's a reference to the first line in Blood, Sweat, and Tears. So, ha! Take that, my brain. I was right. Okay, we're moving on to character design now. But I like seeing the difference between Zanite and Piltovian costume design. I'll give 2 examples focusing on hair ties. Jinx puts unpolished steel hex nuts in her hair, while Mel has these finely made gold hair cuffs in her braids. Of course, Jinx chooses hex nuts because she's an inventor, but I wanted to specifically highlight the material here. Zanites typically choose brass, like Savika, or steel as accents. It's easily accessible and relatively cheap to make or find. Pilties use shiny silver and gold as their accent colors. And Silco, who's trying to be taken seriously by the Pilties, also uses a shiny silver metal. It's a really cool detail that I wanted to mention. Caitlyn's vampire cape during her Dictator era is a fun look. It made me giggle and it gets the point across very well. As the show goes on, Caitlyn's clothes get darker and darker. The Enforcer blue color first darkens to navy blue, and then her color is black by the final episode. I think it's interesting that she doesn't go back to blue after that point. I think it's a permanent reminder that she hasn't yet atoned for what she's done. Mostly because the show doesn't let her actually acknowledge it, but we'll get to that in my next video. Get ready to hear the phrase, "we'll get to that later," a lot. Vi incorporates Clagger's goggles into her design after she finds them in episode 2. Jinx discarded them in the arcade while building Savika's arm, that's how she finds them. Speaking of Vi, she has some interesting looks this season. The first time she puts on the Enforcer suit, it looks like it doesn't fit her. Not physically or on a character level. It looks awkward, but on purpose. Of course, her Enforcer gear in the finale looks even worse, which I'm not sure is intentional, but at least in the beginning it makes sense. Blue's just not her color. Speaking of which, after her Pit Fighter arc, her blue gauntlets get painted red. The Hex gem still glows blue, but she's made the parts she can change her own. And oh my gosh, Pit Fighter Vi's costume is so hot! I may be ace, but I do have functioning eyes. Mostly functioning, I do have glasses. When she's in the ring, Vi blacks out anything that can identify her. She strips down to tight pants and a chest strap, and it's only when Jinx reaches out to her again that she starts to add some character back into her outfit. The face paint comes off, and then she dons a new leather jacket. It's spiky and hardened and unwelcoming, like Vi's mind at this point. And it also has this interesting little patch on the back, a 2-headed dog, aligning her with Vander once more. Episode 7, as per usual, gets its own section. The Zonite characters blend Piltover finery with Zonite asymmetry and mismatched gear. It looks kinda interesting. Especially considering that the Zonite pirate stripes, as I like to call them, are absent, as far as I can tell. Stripes tend to symbolize delinquency in character design, so I guess it makes sense that they're gone. There's no reason to be a delinquent. Let's focus on Powder and Echo for a minute. Echo has patches of red on his clothes, and so does Powder. I think Powder's shirt is mostly made with Echo's green, at least his suit jacket. I can't quite tell with the lighting, honestly. Powder also wears Vi's necklace from before the time jump, and she's missing her iconic hairbang, implying that she's taken on more of Vander's influence in this universe. In addition to that, she's put a pink streak in her hair for Vi. And then Echo puts a couple pink and blue hair ties into his hair in the finale. It's so cute! Some people have theorized that Echo is a professor in the AU. When Echo has his little anomaly freak-out moment at the restaurant, Clagger says, "Professor?" But he doesn't seem to be pointing that remark at Heimerdinger. He seems to be saying it to Echo. I don't even know if Heimerdinger is still a professor in this universe. Anyway, this theory might explain why Echo dresses more professionally, with a cleaner design than the other Zonites. Kinda interesting to think about. When Jinx is, once again, trying to blow herself up, she takes off the strings of her vest and cuts off her iconic braids. Just like Vi, she's at a point in her life where she's removing her visual identifiers. When she comes back in the final battle, it seems like she's made a new identity for herself. It references her old life, but it combines it in a way that feels new. Her vest is gone, but the X is back. And this time, it's Vi pink and Echo green, or maybe Jinx pink and Echo green. She's got a chest strap and tight black pants like Vi, and a purple shark tooth hoodie referencing fish bones. Her bangs now sport a purple strand, which seems to be her dominant color now. Which, as we know, pink and blue make purple. On one of her knees is a strip of her old pants. She has, I think, 20 tally marks in a dark blue that might be referencing her age, aka how many years she's survived. She's even got some references to Isha with the yellow paint on her belt and tattoos. Wow, I didn't expect to have a lot to say about Jinx's final outfit, but I guess I did. Especially considering that it is so freaking hard to find a good picture of her outfit. Oh my gosh, I can never find a good reference picture. This is by far the beefiest section, so buckle up. I'm gonna state the obvious for a second. Although the writing for the season was interesting, the animation never missed a beat. There was no dip in quality, no moments where I thought, oh, they cut corners here. Quite the opposite, actually. The visuals were spectacular. That's not even a good enough word to describe it. I could search the world until I'm as old as Bad End Victor and still not be able to describe what the animation of the show means to me. The way things move, the art style, the cinematography, the character designs, everything visual was absolutely gorgeous. What I love the most is that Arcane finds beauty in even the most unwelcoming of places. Whether it's a burning alleyway or the end of the world, a fancy pancake or a neon workshop, everything is given a level of detail and color cohesion that highlights the character of these settings. I mean, seriously, pick any screenshot of your choice and study the background. There is so many details that someone spent hours thinking about and rendering. And it's all to serve not only as background design, but as character design. Okay, we gotta keep it moving. For the animation section, we're gonna go chronologically in order, and I'll separate them by episodes. With the exception of this next section, opening sequence. They really stepped it up with the opening credits this season. The characters have these little snapshots that highlight their main struggle for the season. Here's what I found. Everyone's dressed in very simple clothing, like they've been stripped down to their barest expression of themselves. Funny enough, that seems to happen a lot by the end of the show. A lot of the characters in the final battle are basically wearing skims. Anyway, Caitlyn steps out from a curtain, clearly struggling, then she smiles for a crowd. It's funny though, we don't really get a ton about her performing for an audience, so to speak. At least not politically. And she certainly doesn't feel like she's performing happiness for most of the season. She looks very, miserable, actually. As you've probably already heard, Caitlyn also has a Macbeth reference when she's gripping her head. Even a worm will turn. After a certain moment, Echo's shadow looks like a ticking clock. There's even a ticking sound in the music, strengthening the time connection. The connection between Ambessa and Mel is very interesting as well. Ambessa crushes a black rose with red highlights in her eyes. As she lounges lazily on the couch, dozens of crushed roses lay scattered behind her. As a result of Ambessa's actions, Mel gets overwhelmed by shadowy hands. And then eventually, Mel takes Ambessa's seat. Unlike her mother, she sits down carefully, observing the rose. Jinx waves a flag, looking up at it. Her face suddenly looks unsure and even powder-like in the close-up shot. In the very beginning of the sequence, Jinx rises while Vi crumples downward. Victor starts to put on a white mask, and a row of the same pale faces show up behind him. Throughout this sequence, each of these characters have to interact with a colorful strip of light. A pink light often takes the shape of a V for Vi, highlighting her Roman numeral tattoo even as she wipes it away. Mel and the black rose are bisected by an orange light. They are pulled in two directions, or shown to be double-sided. Echo leaps over a green light, dodging it. The blue light most often highlights Jinx's eyes. I don't think Caitlyn gets a strip of light of her own. Instead, many of her scenes are dominated by shadow. The curtains, her silhouette when she clashes with Vi, and her own shadow, complete with a crown of guilty fingers on her head. Victor and Jace deal with a prism of multicolored lights. Jace's light almost blinds him, but he seeks it out anyway. And then, each episode has some secret images hidden in the title sequence. Several people have made breakdowns of all of them, but the one I liked was this video by Bad King on YouTube. Let's start with Season 2, Episode 1. The funeral scene with Kate and her mom is done traditionally in charcoal, as in, this is real charcoal on paper, and then they scanned it in and incorporated it into the background. The whole sequence is beautiful, but I'll highlight a couple moments. I love when Kate keeps shifting further and further to the right as the casket lid closes, like she can't afford to lose a millisecond of the last moments with her mom. She doesn't even dare to blink. And then she watches as the faceless men take her mother away, and you can tell she's just thinking, just stay strong. Stay strong. You can't cry here. Stay strong. I've held that mantra in my head many times in my life. I know how hard it is to keep the tears from filling you up like a vessel and pouring out the cracks in your eyes. This is something I only caught the second time around. I had the shot. She says it first in episode 1 to her dad. Then she says it to Vi in episode 3. This parallel explains Caitlyn's insistence on shooting Jinx no matter what in episode 3. She won't get another chance after this. With all the trouble I had understanding the characters this season, I fully understood Caitlyn's headspace. Well, until the second arc anyway. I feel like she switches between being against Vi to following her plan too quickly, but other than that, I completely understand why she does what she does this season. I don't have much to say about the scene where Jinx gives Silco a water burial, but there is this one moment where she keeps looking at Silco like she expects him to wake up any second now. Actually, that's kind of an interesting parallel between her and Caitlin. While Kate gets her expensive white casket funeral with beautiful purple flowers, Jinx has to bury her father in a polluted river, all alone. At least she didn't have to leave him out on the streets like Vander. But the thing both parents share is how peaceful, how alive they look in death. When the girls stare at their parents like they'll suddenly take in a breath and wake from their nap, I don't blame them. I've seen other people comment on this already, but I like how Sallow's struggle with his wheelchair in the council room shows how inaccessible Piltover is. They expect everyone to be able-bodied and therefore don't even think to include a wheelchair ramp. He just has to clank noisily down the stairs. Episode 2. I'm starting with the Suckers music video. I love the reversal of the baptism scene as Jinx puts Silco under the water. It's a shock to no one that when Arcane pulls out the music, it's about to be a good visual sequence. It's a very interesting style, with the unnatural colors and the juxtaposition between moving characters and still backgrounds. With a few notable exceptions, only Jinx moves during the song. People in flashbacks and current events move, and these random Zonites that are fighting move. Other than that, though, it's just Jinx. I don't have many thoughts on most of these music videos because they do their job well and they are super engaging to watch. If you want a real animation breakdown, I'd recommend TB Skyen's videos. Well, technically is 3B Skyen channel, but you know. Hyper Digger is adorable this season! He's so joyful when he's sneaking into a building he basically owns. I love how he makes little hand signals and code words that Echo doesn't understand. He gallivants and hops around with such gusto his cute little mask falls off and he does this endearing little double take. And Echo just humors him, not really taking this super seriously. Neither does Jace, by the way. Heimer excitedly explains that they broke in, and Jace just gives him a little look. Oh, piss posh, like you've never done it. I love that this old man is living the teenage dream over here. No, not that one. Heimerdinger really does feel like he's taken Echo's advice. Instead of surviving, he's truly living, and he's enjoying it. And so am I. In the arcade, I love the way the smoke takes on a life of its own in hazy, rainbow, snake-like patterns. The shadow of a mini-eyed monster wisps into the air before the figures split off. The lights behind the Force's goggles glow eerily, faceless and emotionless. This scene has a fantastic atmosphere. Unless you're breathing it in. Sorry, Jinx. Yeah, okay. Savika versus Smeech. I think this is my favorite fight scene. Maybe in all of Arcane. It is so fun. Usually Arcane fight scenes are fun until they punch you in the face with a dramatic mood shift, but this one was a party all the way through. The fight choreography here is top-notch as always, and they put in a lot of meaningful character interactions in there, and of course, who's the funny-looking rat now? Yeah! Get him, Savika, my queen! Oh my goodness. Episode 3. The Hellfire music video is in a super neat 2D comic style. I can say the same thing about Paint the Town Blue, actually. Again, not much to say here. It explains what's going on, it's visually engaging. What more could a Muppet want? Well, actually, I wanted a few more things from this scene, but more on that in part 2. I wasn't quite sure where to put this bit since it's more of a neutral observation, but here's one very weird thing I noticed. It looks like Jinx stopped shooting to kill in Act 1? I can't tell for sure, but every time she shoots a mobster guy, it looks like they just get knocked out. A guy in the Suckers music video actually tries to get up before just conking out again. There's not even any entry wound shown. I can't tell if this is something I like or something that feels unnatural for Jinx. I'm also not sure if it's just Fortiche trying to avoid a more mature rating this season, or if it's actually an early sign that Jinx is questioning the, quote, Jinx way of doing things. The entire 2 Ashes and Blood sequence is top-notch! I love the match cut between Fishbones and the turning of Jace's hammer dial. The anomaly looks so cool. It looks like ferrofluid, which is basically a liquid magnet, charged positively and negatively in all directions. I also like the repeated Jaces and the kaleidoscope effect too. I'm pretty sure Jace and Echo continue to hallucinate kaleidoscopes during and after their little AU trips, especially Jace. If you haven't seen the making of video for 2 Ashes and Blood, it's worth a watch. I love that Woodkid incorporated a lot of harsh sounds and ancient percussion to portray the anomaly. I caught this on my second rewatch. The Hextech weapons with the updated designs glitch out first. Fishbones only starts to glitch once it's fired, and then Jinx has to switch back to her old handgun. Savika is also affected by the glitching, even though her new arm doesn't have Hextech in it. I think it's actually her scar that makes her wig out, since that's a remnant of when Powder used her Hextech Monkey Bomb. There's this one moment near the end that I think is really important. Vi moves Caitlyn's gun out of the way, and Jinx looks at Vi like she's having an important revelation. Jinx has a very all-or-nothing way of seeing people. They're good or they're bad, and someone can only love one person at a time. But I think this scene really challenges her worldview. Vi protects Isha even though she's a cop. And as Jinx knows, the cops are part of a system that sees all Zonites, adult or not, as vermin. When a cop orphans a kid, they don't care. But Vi cares. She also notices the moment where Vi hesitates to punch Jinx on that altar thing. And I think this is part of why Jinx tracks Vander down later. After this point, she's starting to think less about her own pain and more about how she can alleviate that pain for others. After Jinx paints the vents, there's a shot of Kate's tree being painted blue. It's a nice parallel to Echo's tree, even if Jinx didn't realize it. You stain Zon's tree, we'll stain Piltover's. Episode 4. In Season 1, Vi tells Caitlin about how she and Powder would one-up each other by pretending to be bigger and bigger monsters. I have claws. Well, I have venom for ooze. And then in Season 2, Episode 4, Stinkmaw and Scuttlebot show up. One has claws, another seems to have yellow venom oozing from his mouth. Kind of a fun parallel. Isha really does seem to put her in touch with her inner Powder again. Speaking of Isha, a lot of people say her deafness and nonverbalness is just because she's a plot device. Although I have some problems with her death, and how she was treated on a writer's level, she's not just a plot device, and no, she is not without personality. She has an incredibly strong sense of justice and Zonite pride. She cares not only about her loved ones, but about Zona itself. Her main character motivation is actually tied to this. She's got a home to protect. Everyone around her shows they love her by protecting her, and all she wants is to return the favor.
I only wanted to help.
Maybe it's not what you want for this character, but don't say there was no thought behind who she is as a character. One note though, it would have been nice for Jinx to learn sign language for Isha though. Maybe even Isha doesn't know sign language in the version of the story that we got, but I mean this is a fictional story. You could make up any number of ways that Jinx and Isha could learn it. I just feel like Jinx would or should know by now that Isha seems to have hearing issues. Even if she isn't deaf, despite the fact that she spends a lot of her time looking at people's lips, she is nonverbal, and sign language is very useful for people who are nonverbal. So, there's a few gruesome things that I laughed at this season. This is one of them. That poor goat man got blasted into oblivion when he was testing Hex Tech for Ambessa. We know this because his sad little silhouette is on the wall here. R.I.P. random guy. We truly lost a side character we didn't even know. In the jail, I love the moment where everyone touches Jinx's shoulder. She's not used to being a part of a community. Usually, people flinch away at her touch, her gaze. But people are finally starting to see her as more than just a Jinx. Is it any surprise that the fight choreography between Warwick and Jinx is amazing? Red and blue colors battle for dominance on the screen. Isha fears that she's witnessing the last moments of her sister. And of course, Jinx uses her signature move here. Oh, you're gonna kill me? Too bad, I'll blow us both up. She does this literally every time she thinks she's about to die. But Vander has the good sense to not let her pull the pin, which leads to him recognizing the bomb, and then recognizing the bomber. Episode 5. I love the trash talk and the cat fight between Jinx and Vi. They're definitely sisters. I really like the way Vi's punches interact with Vander's body in their fight. At one point, she splits his face in two before it knits back together, and then it shows his internal structure here. Yep, the "he's your dad too" line still gets me. This family is little and broken, but still good. Yeah, still good. They all had to change to survive, but for one shining candlelit moment, they were together once more. This scene encapsulates what I feel is the emotional core of the series. Two sisters and their struggle to remain a family. Despite their differences, they're still sisters, and they will always love each other, and they will always love their dad. Of course, Jinx has like 3 dads, but you know. This scene also showed me just how much Jinx cares for Vander, too. Vander and Powder barely interact in Season 1. I don't think Vander says a single word to her. So it took me off guard when Jinx reacted so strongly to the "he's your dad too" line. Not that that's a bad thing, though. I'm just grateful for the extra context, and it made the scene all the more powerful for me. I always laugh during the moment where Jace plays whack-a-mole with Sallow. Or rather, what was left of Sallow before he flattens his empty husk into goo. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is not Sallow anymore. It's just his body. The Sallow we know is not grateful for anything. He doesn't even breathe in this place, while Jace's breath puffs into the cold air. Sallow's not Sallow anymore. Okay, episode 6. When Ambessa and Caitlin train, Ambessa ends the fight by throwing her to the ground. Caitlin then reaches her hand up, expecting Ambessa to take it and pull her up. Nope, Ambessa's in control here. She grabs her by the upper arm and yanks her up. I vaguely remember this happening again later in the series. Maybe it happens in the final battle, but I never caught it on my second rewatch, so I guess it's a moot point. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, feel free to drop a comment, because I might have hallucinated that. It is a joy to see Victor's mindscape anytime it shows up, especially when he's exploring Vander's psyche. So many beautiful colors, each memory is its own nebula. There's also this little moment where Vander's body is like warped and it has these little like wolf heads coming off of it, which I think is cool. The ending of that episode was beautiful. Victor's speech, Isha's last stand. That which inspires us to do our greatest good is also the cause of our greatest evil. Bars, no notes. Isha's death scene got to me. I thought I bawled like a baby during episode 5, but this episode, man, I spent the whole credits just in tears. I'm still not entirely sure why it affected me so much. Probably because I didn't think they'd actually use Isha as a sacrificial lamb. But, I trusted them and I paid the price. They did give her a great send-off at least. Playing a happy-sounding song over very sad visuals always gets me. Intercutting her family's desperate situation with joyful memories reminds us of how much Isha is giving up. But her last act fulfills her goal as a character, to protect the people she loves. Tears fill her eyes as she thinks of how hard it is to say goodbye. But this is her moment. She's a big fat hero, just like her role model, her protector, her sister. That's all she ever really wanted. She loves the people that took her in when no one else would. Jinx protected her in her greatest time of need, and even though she didn't have to, Isha just wants to return the favor. Best feeling in the world, kid. Fly high, little canary. Fly high. Do you see what I mean, man? What the crap?
Woo! Yeah, baby!
Episode 7! Can you tell that this is my favorite episode? Episode 7 is immediately off to a great start. We get to see the exact moment AU and our Echo switch out. Where did AU Echo go? This is not a plot hole. I need to know. I need to know. I don't think he went to the canon universe. Did he completely slip out of this time stream? Did he go to the bad end universe? Does he have any memory of where he went afterwards? Where did he go? This is fascinating to think about. I need a fanfiction that explores this. If there isn't one, I might just have to make it myself. I'm not done with AU Echo either. There's a couple interesting things Powder says about him. You know those ugly twins, genius and madness. And you had one of your crazy dreams and you came to me for help. Now I really want to know what AU Echo was like. These quotes have some fascinating implications. Does Echo experience psychosis in this universe? I don't know, I don't think so, but I am seated and willing to learn more. Let me guess, you think I'm holding myself back. Powder says this to Vander when he gives her a pep talk, if I remember correctly. This was very enlightening to me in regards to AU Powder. Our Jinx doesn't typically hold back. It seems AU Powder restrains herself because of the accident. But she also holds herself back in other ways. Example being, get out of here, Echo, before I do something I might regret. This is actually the moment that helped me understand AU Powder a lot more. At first, I couldn't tell how much of Powder/Jinx was environmental and how much is actually built into her personality. And then this moment happens. For context, Echo is trying to goad Powder into responding, while also getting some intel on this universe. Powder then tells Echo to go away before she does something she might regret. AU Powder seems to still have violent thoughts, she just has a support system to back her up. It also helps that she's not under immense stress every day of her life. Here's some more signs that Powder's holding back. In regards to the competition invention, Echo says, I came to you? Powder snorts and says, well, you weren't gonna figure it out yourself. And after showing Powder the Vi memorial, Powder says, I like my life, Echo. It seems she doesn't want to jinx something if it's going well. After all, she already did once. There is one thing that doesn't fully make sense to me. I don't fully buy that Piltover changed their whole system just because a kid got killed. Granted, they did get killed by a Pilty's inventions, but Jace's invention was definitely not sanctioned by the school. And it's not like enforcers have ever cared whether a Zonite kid lives or dies anyway. Maybe Zon's freedom was achieved through bloody means, but I mean, it's not like they show it. Personally, I would have liked to see, I don't know, damaged buildings or something that had been rebuilt, but I didn't notice it in the background, so, you know. Vander and Silco being friends does make sense to me, though. It seems Silco found Vander's letter and followed his instructions to come find him. They then had a heart-to-heart and started to resolve their differences. And with Piltover changing the way they ran things, they also didn't have to fight about the methods by which Zaun would get their independence. That whole sequence where Jace has to survive the pit has a fantastic atmosphere, very spooky and alien. I love the way the Arcane makes creeping changes to Jace's leg and to his hammer. His hammer, which, by the way, stopped its anti-gravity properties once the blue leg glitched and disappeared. After that moment, it looks a lot harder for Jace to carry it. Anyway, the time-lapse animation is so eerily cool. The Hex dolls also move in a fantastically janky and twitchy way, and in episode 9, they crawl up the wall like spiders. Super fun. The husks remind me of the way birds move. Our avian friends don't slowly turn their head, they jerk it immediately into place. I'm surprised more people don't use birds as horror inspiration. There's a lot about birds that are freaky. Alright, back to the good at you. In case I don't tell you tomorrow, you've always meant the world to me. Ah, my babies! In a season lacking in closure, I'm so glad that Echo at least got some of it. My baby boy got to say goodbye to his bonus dad one last time. Powder and Echo get into another argument under the tree. Is that what this is about, Echo? You want me to change? At first, Echo says no, very emphatically. Then he thinks about it, saying no, again. This might be the moment he's starting to realize that he loves Powder and Jinx in all of her forms. I love that the monkeys on Echo's Z-Drive form a zoetrope. That's one of the oldest forms of animation that we have. Another very grim but funny detail. After Heimer explodes, Echo sits down and a couple clumps of yellow hair are still stuck to his face. Powder even brushes one of them off, and I have no idea if she knows whose hair that is, or if she's just choosing to ignore it. Near the end, Powder echoes words. Sometimes taking a leap forward means leaping a few things behind. She has this forlorn look in her eyes. I think she knows by now what's going on with Echo. Her look tells me that she's already gonna miss him. Heimerdinger finishes the work on the anomaly as his last act of love. I must say that since I've met you, lad, I've truly lived. I love you, Heimer! Some people didn't like Heimerdinger's send-off. I really did, though. There was enough to telegraph his death, I think, and they gave him a really heartfelt way to leave. He showed what he learned by sacrificing his life. Apparently he's not even dead, really. Yordles, his species, just teleport themselves into the spirit world, where they'll eventually make their way back to the mortal realm. Technically speaking, we haven't seen the last of this little dork. When Powder sees our Echo in the anomaly, it's my favorite moment in this entire episode. I'm reluctant to say it, but AU Echo's design is just a tad bit boring. Maybe on purpose if we believe the professor theory. It's visually cleaner, less disorganized than the other Zaunites, his hair is done up all nice. Other than the white and red patches, it's just a regular suit. And then we see our Echo's design again. We're reminded of all the colorful writing all over his jacket, the asymmetrical hair, the face paint, the little knickknacks on his belt. It's clear he's lived a full life up until this moment. He's resplendent, he's magnificent, he's beautiful, and Powder can see it too. Echo reaches out to her with such love in his eyes, and then he's gone in a flash of fractals. Side note, have you ever noticed that every time the anomaly teleports people, they get this like butterfly X type shape? It's kind of interesting. Okay, episode 8, home stretch. I love how when Jace gathers a bunch of people into the meeting chamber, they're all staring at each other, silent, and then Jace comes thundering in like he's from the Mesozoic era and shouts, "Quiet! It wasn't until you showed up, bud." Okay. I can't talk about this episode without talking about the worst part in the entire show. Why are they doing it in a jail cell? Vi just started unpacking something she's really stressed about. She's stuck in a jail cell again where she spends 7 years traumatized. Her sister just left to go make like Kermit and fall off a building. And you decide that now's the time to bang? Bruh! And they barely even hashed out their grievances with each other too. Vi had not even 2 minutes to tell off Kate a few scenes ago, and then now suddenly she doesn't effing care. Ah! Hey, you know the rules, Feral Ranjan. We made a deal. This is my video, the next video is yours. Go on, get. No, get. Back in the box with you. Ugh, alter egos, am I right? Where was I? Oh yeah, I will miss our talks. No, you won't. This was an interesting moment for me. This might be more subtextual, but Victor never really knew Sky. I think her being in his head was a convenient way for him to feel less guilty. He barely paid Sky any mind until she was a pile of ash. He only started wanting to get to know her after her physical body disappeared. I think Sky was commenting on this fact. Or maybe she was just talking about how his personality is about to get wiped. who knows? Speaking of which, the line music video was beautiful. The extra musical flares in the TV version create such a haunting atmosphere, accenting the cracking and popping of the corpses mutating in the air. I did not describe that in a way that sounds beautiful, but it was a really good looking scene. It also helps that 21 Pilots is one of my favorite bands. I've listened to the Clancy album so many times since it came out. The line is definitely a Clancy song. At this point in writing the script, I had to physically hold myself back from writing more things I liked about Arcane, but I thought this moment was kinda cool. What little we did see from Mel this season was interesting. After Kino is revealed to be LeBlanc, she tries to strike a deal with Mel. She shifts form several times, and as she offers the Black Rose membership in a form of a necklace, she takes the shape of a very particular person. In a flashback in Season 1, Mel tries to save the life of a young girl using her gift of cunning. Mbessa, of course, beheads that idea by beheading the girl. And now that girl's face is back, but the roles are reversed. Regardless of her ulterior motives, LeBlanc is, in some way, trying to save Mel through her own cunning. That's why she uses this form instead of, say, that Black Shadow form, or even Mel's own face. Alright, last episode, guys. Episode 9, finale. Surprisingly, I had a lot of good things to say about the finale. The first part has this cool moment where glass explodes in the image of Warwick's jaws. This is when Jinx is burning the last drop down, by the way. She accomplished what Marcus only dreamed of doing. The scene where Echo tries to talk an old friend out of blowing themselves up is super interesting to me. First try, she thinks Echo's a hallucination and just blows him off. Technically she blows him up, but you know. Second time, she looks at him and pulls the pin like she's trying to prove a theory. Third time, and she's noticing that Echo's mysteriously more beat up than when he first appeared to her. Fourth time, and she jumps off the propeller so she doesn't blow Echo up. Last time, she looks at the monkeys in Echo's device. We know she's smart. I wonder if she knows where he's been by this point, or if she just wants him to stick around until he tells that story. Anyway, the one thing that really gets her to stay is this. I heard from someone very special that no matter what happened in the past, it's never too late to build something new. Someone worth building it for. Vi gave her the build something new shtick in the prison, and that didn't go too well. It might have been because she focused on the past, not the future. But Echo adds the someone worth building it for part, and I think that's what ultimately changes her mind. Until Echo gets through to her, Jinx believes that she's, well, a jinx to everyone in her life. Everyone that's still alive, anyway. But there's one person she hasn't yet considered. Assuming Jinx has figured out how the Z-Drive works, maybe she figures that she can't really hurt Echo. Last time she exploded him, he just turned back the time. I feel like there's something missing between this scene and the final battle, obviously. But say it with me, we'll get to that later. And then she and Echo make something new. During the final battle, Time Bomb paints each other, does their hair, and retrofits the freaking propellers to make their own balloon. I love this idea because she's making something new while acknowledging her past. Like for example, the Jinx chair is there, the bunny plush is there, and she's got writing referencing her family. And they look so cool while saving the day with a hero song to go with it. I love my children. I love Victor's herald design, especially in like the face head type area. His voice effects are pretty cool too. It makes him feel like he's more than just human. I like the blue halo around his head with the runes around it, and the flat mask that bisects and then supersedes his face. And the freaky third arm too. It twitches in erratic movements, ever shifting, just like the Hex dolls. And it's also a reference to Victor's laser mining arm invention from Season 1. And his League of Legends skin, you know. Victor possesses Jace and everyone else, and we get to see everyone connected by the void. And it is gorgeous! Like, oh, just look at this! I love space! You've always wanted to cure what you thought were weaknesses, but you were never broken, Victor. There is beauty in imperfections, an inseparable piece of everything I admired about you. This is genuinely a nice sentiment, even though his speech feels a little more catered toward an able-bodied audience rather than a disabled one. But, you know, it's fine. It's still nice. I love you, Echo, my unproblematic heroic boy. He gets to help deal the final blow by launching, well, a time bomb at the offending party. By the way, I wasn't a time bomb shipper before Season 2. I am now! Like, I didn't even know it was a thing in Season 1 because I am chronically clueless. But yeah, I kind of like it. They're kind of cute together. Okay, going too far on the Z-Drive was a Chekhov's gun that I didn't realize existed, but it was fired perfectly. and it's a genius move on Echo's part. Instead of exploding someone, it implodes Jason Victor. I thought I could bring an end to this world's suffering, but when every equation was solved, all that remained were fields of dreamless solitude. Banger line, honestly. There is no prize to perfection, only an end to pursuit. Now this is an interesting thesis statement for Victor. Speaking of which, the moments during Jason Victor getting sucked into the acceleration rune were absolutely amazing, to the surprise of no one. I love the 2D animation so much. Jason Victor take the fallout for everyone and atone in some small way for their mistakes. And with that, QPR Javik is confirmed! No, shut up, let me have this. By the way, a queer platonic relationship is something that has all of the commitment of a romantic or sexual relationship, but it has none of the romance. So you are more than just friends or just best friends, but you also don't have any romance attached to it. The way I see it, they never really felt romantic to me. They even call each other brothers a couple times. Their relationship has always felt like it superseded simple labels like romance, because they're more than just that. They're partners. That label, the way they interact, it feels very queer platonic to me, especially considering that the lead writer for Arcane in this interview headcanons Victor as asexual. So do I, by the way. Do not erase that part of his identity just because you want him to only be gay. I mean, face it, Victor's never really seemed to have a romantic or sexual interest in anyone, really. Minus the saucy little pose he puts Jason. I will give you that much to the shippers. But aside from that, he just seems completely uninterested in romance. So yeah, just let me have this, please. You're allowed to have your ships. Let me have mine. Okay, one last thing before we move on. I actually really like that Jinx gets a chance to remove herself from her old home and find a new identity somewhere else. If you don't know what I'm talking about, much better YouTubers than me can tell you all the ways that we know Jinx is alive, but she should have told Vi and Echo she's still alive, which we will talk about in part 2. Alright, you ready for this? Here's the secret fourth section. It's you guys! It's the fandom! One of the things I love about Arcane Season 2 is you! Yes, you, who is drawing or animating or writing while a Muppet rants about Arcane in the background. Your stuff looks good, by the way. It lights my world to see people analyze this fantastic show and point out the details that I missed. And y'all making the fan art are absolutely amazing, oh my gosh. Shows like this inspire artists like me to play with our style and find beauty in chaos, just like Arcane does. Okay, I am still in awe about how much I have to say about Arcane. I expected this to be, a 20-30 minute video like usual, because I can never seem to get past the 20-30 minute mark. Not this time. This video alone is an hour long. So the point I'm trying to say is, if you're still here, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been 7 months since Season 2 dropped, so yeah, the hype has died a little bit, which means that I am not going to automatically be blessed by the algorithm. So if you're seeing this, you're a real one. Anyway, let's get to the scripted conclusion. With all the problems I had with the second season, Arcane still means so much to me. It's clear that everyone working on the show has a monumental love for their craft. I'm incredibly grateful that we finally have an ending for this amazing show. Arcane is a masterclass in amazing storytelling, but, as I must finally admit, it's also a masterclass in audience betrayal. You ready to be let out, Feral Ranjan? It's your time to shine! I'm free! Okay, see you in part 2. After watching this massive video, you deserve a little treat. Here's some bloopers. If you've noticed any time Jinx and Vi are talking and you hear the choir, the lady's voice going, ooh, that's the best choir impression I have? Really? Bro. Okay, lock in. In other words, Ranjan Central did not, in fact, lock in. Except for lock her vocal cords. The animation was obviously stellar. The animation was obviously stellar. In the TV version of Tanded Pound Blue. Pound Town. No! And oh my gosh! Whoa! Mama, we got divorce crack. Mama, you're enemy. The fight choreography. What more could a Wuppet want? What more could a Muppet want? Okay. After that moment, it looks a lot harder for Gase. Ah, my babies! Oh, no. Ah! Sorry, neighbors. Free me from the box. We'll just have to stay in good posture for an entire hour. This is me with the Towel of Terror, but we've always had the plosive. And if it doesn't work, I will become explosive. There we go. Come on. Work, function. Hopefully my flatmates don't think I'm crazy. Joke's on them, I am. I'm free! Oh gosh, what are my neighbors gonna think? We know she's smart. Ugh. I'm not smart. No, I am. Just face smart or dumb. Face dumb. Case in point. Okay. And retrofits the freaking propeller. Okay. And the free. They made you who you are. An inseparable. This is selfness all over again. Yeah. I love you, Echo, my unproblematic Cheerio boy. What, are you gonna get put on a Cheerio box or something? Okay. Oh my gosh. I am filled to the brim with dad jokes. I disappoint even myself.